Our students cannot read at grade level. As a music teacher, I didn't really think I had a whole lot to add to this conversation, but I don't think a lot of y'all understand how much this is affecting them in every single course that they're taking, not just the ones where they're having to write and read passages like science and math and reading courses, but it's affecting them in every aspect of their schooling.
Teresa is one of the teachers I listen to a lot on TikTok. I don't go on TikTok a lot, but whenever I see her, I like to hear her experience. I think she sounds like a very knowledgeable teacher.
I saw in my band hall with kids that did not know how to read at their grade level. So what I was noticing this past year with my students is they weren't just having those typical issues that you would have to work through. A lot of these kids would not even use alphabet symbols.
Characters.
They would be making up symbols. They would not even know how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G on their piece of paper. They wouldn't know how to form those letters. They would also have issues not knowing alphabetical order in general. So if they knew how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they couldn't answer to me what letter would come after C in the alphabet. And I would ask them things like that specifically. What comes after C in the alphabet?
That's why phonics is so important. Teaching phonics, the kid should at least know the ABC song. But yeah, learning the characters, learning how to say each individual character, and then blending and segmenting, they're so important. I did another video on the reading wars where we look at the two ways that reading has been taught recently.
They couldn't answer it. And I'm not just talking one or two kids in the class. I'm talking closer to 50%. And we're not also just talking about sixth graders. We're talking about sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. Kids that are about to go into high school.
That's crazy.
And did it make the job of teaching kids how to read music harder? Yes. But I think the reason why I'm wanting to point this out specifically is that a lot of teachers in middle school grades or upper level grades before you get into high school aren't necessarily dealing with skills that require you to go back to those remedial basics.
So a lot of people in the comments are saying that, wow, teachers are complaining about kids not being able to read. But if you're in high school, you're about to teach a lot of high level things, and having to go back and teach phonics and reading to students about to go to high school, that's not what you're supposed to be teaching them. And that's why it's difficult. These are things kids are supposed to be learning in kindergarten and elementary school. Now they're about to go to high school, or they're in high school, and they're not even able to do the basics such as reading and writing. So how are you supposed to go back and teach some students how to read and write and other students advanced skills? Differentiation is a thing, but that's a major gap.
But in music class, we literally work with the alphabet every single day. We only work with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 letters of the alphabet. And a lot of these kids do not know the first 7 letters of their alphabet or what order they go in. So I can only imagine how they are having issues reading and writing when they can't even identify the first 7 letters of the alphabet. It is a crisis. And before you say, well, maybe you're just not teaching the concept good enough for them to understand that they need to use the alphabet. I would see a correlation most of the time between the kids that were having those issues that I discussed and the ones that could not complete a writing assignment in music class, which I did have them write things out a lot. And oftentimes the same kids that could not identify their alphabet or write things in alphabetical order also could not write passages on their own that were legible and readable.
I know all last week, all over social media, you saw nothing but teachers talking about how elementary and middle school kids are reading 4 years below grade level. Well, as a high school teacher, I'm here to inform you that high school kids are doing way worse. They are reading 6 years below grade level. The only difference is a whole heap of these kids are going to graduate at the end of this school year. And we are expecting them to go to college and obtain jobs when they cannot even comprehend basic skills, which is why we probably see a problem with employers finding employees.
So a lot of people say it's because of COVID that those couple of years held the students back and they missed out on a lot of schooling. But the truth is, you're going to want to look at parents. most parents are supposed to read to their kids, especially when they're young. So yeah, we can say it's because of COVID, or we can give many excuses, but really this should come down to parents. And then, what happened to these kids when they were in elementary school? Why didn't they read then? It's crazy.
There are literally high school kids reading on a 3rd grade reading level, and still states are expecting teachers to prepare kids and have them pass state tests are on or above grade level. See, the issue is schools have dumbed it down for kids. They have made it so easy that kids believe that their only job is to show up and behave, and that should be enough to get a passing grade and to go on to the next grade level. We have a real issue here, and please do not talk to me about graduation rates, because Bugs Bunny could graduate in this era. Make it make sense.
Yeah. So that's very true. As teachers, you've got these problem students in your class, and you're just like, man, I need to push them out. In many countries, you're supposed to keep the students in, no child left behind. So the students are basically being pushed through to the next grade. Remember when you were at school, you were so afraid of failing, because a few students would fail and they would be held back, and it's so embarrassing. Nobody wanted to feel that shame. Now students are just being pushed through so that they're the next grade's problem. And I think that has to stop. We have levels for a reason, and if we just continue to push students through, they're never going to learn. I think that's something very important that should be discussed.
Spell philosophy. Ain't no way, bro. You
Spell
16,
philosophy.
he's 17. Y'all
Yeah,
juniors
lies,
and seniors in
man.
high school, man. Spell it. Ain't no way. We erase
Spell
the board.
philosophy.
We're going to forget about the other stuff. I'm going to give y'all another chance. Spell philosophy.
Penmanship is so important too. What?
Oh. Keep going. I'm curious. I'm curious to see. Come on. Spell philosophy.
Yeah, lives matter.
Yeah. Man. Damn face. Come on. Get out the way. Let me see what y'all spell. Come on. All right.
Lots of up.
Uh-huh. So that's. Oh, y'all ain't done. Philosophy. That's our final word. Philosophy. Huh? Spell cute. I'm gonna give you something simple. I ain't even gonna say no cute. That's a fourth grade word, dog. Spell cute. Spell it.
That's so
Dog.
close. Cute.
Makai. That don't make no damn sense. That don't make no. I don't know what school you going to when you graduate. I don't know what you going. Y'all going back in grade. Well, you going back to the 9th, 7th, 5th, 6th. You going backwards. Spell 2. It's 3 different ways you can spell 2.
So
It's
many
3
of
different
my
ways.
classes.
Spell the first 2.
Every
Maurice.
class is spelling test.
Spell 2.
Maybe once a week.
Just go, bro. Ain't no way.
TWO.
Philosophy 2, 22, cute. And y'all think y'all spelled this stuff right?
Did you know that in 2022, 67% of 4th graders scored below a proficiency level in reading? There are so many kids out there that are being passed along in the system that cannot read. Reading is a part of everyday life, and the fact that we are failing these children says a lot about America's educational system. We are worried about the wrong things right now. We are focused on the wrong things right now. At this point, this is not solely a teacher problem. Parents need to take accountability. They need to help their kids. We are doing what we can with the time that we are given. So many people underestimate all of the things that teachers have to do.
Cuts.
Yes, of course our job is to help your students, and we do that. By the end of 3rd grade, I'm no longer teaching those basic phonics skills. That's where you have to step in as a parent. Advocate for your kid. There are so many parents that don't know what they're capable of doing. Inform yourself. You have so many resources available to you.
School kids are not reading. Kids are not reading. Kids cannot read. It doesn't matter if your child's at an A school or if your child's at a D school or if your child's at a charter school or a private school. I have seen kids at all areas. They all struggle. They all struggle because they don't have exposure and they don't have consistency. We can blame the Department of Education. We can blame the literacy rates being at an all-time high. We can blame the schools, the teachers, but education teacher of 4 years, I specifically teach kids with learning disabilities how to read and to read accurately. We're not talking about teaching kids to read with special education disabilities. We're talking about teaching kids to read that have not had that exposure and that just cannot read, and no environmental factors included. Exposure and consistency. These 2 things are most important when reading, and these kids are not exposed to reading at a young age, and they do not have consistent reading, whether that's at school, at home. They don't have enough exposure of reading in general. The perception of teaching kids to read is it is the teacher's job to teach their children to read. It is the school's job to teach their children to read. Have you been in a public education classroom recently? Teacher to student ratio makes it nearly impossible to differentiate all different reading levels consistently. And I'm talking every single day for targeted reading instruction. You can have the most experienced and most knowledgeable reading expert teaching your child. If you are not doing it consistently, and I mean at least 4 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes a session, it's not going to be effective. If you have elementary school kids that are reading at grade level or even below grade level, get them a tutor, get them extra support to give them those skills to have them be successful with reading. Reading is not meant to be natural, but you need consistency, exposure, and somebody that is qualified and knows the science of reading for it to be successful for any child in a short amount of time.
I wanted to just spend a moment and tell people why I left the system. You know, I'm a former English teacher. Oh my God. And a lot of my videos when I first started on TikTok talked about the school system and what was happening in the school system. So I made a decision to retire. It hurt me and it pained me to go into my classroom, present a book or present a text, and my kids didn't know the first thing about reading comprehension. My kids did not know the first thing about a literary discussion. So I couldn't have a content-specific conversation with my kids because my kids didn't know content-specific vocabulary. And if you don't know the vocabulary attached to English, just like if you don't know it attached to math, you're not going to do well in that subject. So I left literally in tears because I knew that I was seeing the failing of the school system in the United States of America, because I knew going forward unless something happens, I would never be able to enjoy a literary conversation with my students because my students could not read. I was teaching kids that were 3 to 4 grade levels behind. None of them understood what I was saying. And this is every school. This is not just one school. This is every school that I worked at.
Yeah, you know, it's okay if there's a student that's a little bit behind, but 3 or 4 grade levels, you know, they're not going to be able to keep up with what they have to learn. So I can see why it's frustrating to teachers.
So for me to even be in a school system that perpetrated and fronted and pretended like, oh, well, you know, our kids are smart. No, they're not. They are smart, but they're not literary smart. And I think that that's what the part that hurt me the most. Or unless we got rid of these state standardized assessments, they don't allow teachers to teach, but we only teach to the test, and that's why.
Well, I don't agree with quitting because the students can't read. I mean, in this case, I'm going to say that your teacher, you're supposed to be helping these students. So if there's a major problem like that, you've got to address it. If I were to quit, it wouldn't be because there's a problem with my students with regards to what they have to learn. I would cite another reason, but to say specifically because students can't read.
A language arts teacher is considering quitting her job because her 10th grade students don't know how to read. The New Jersey-based teacher shared in her Reddit post that the last couple of years have been very stressful, but the straw that broke the camel's back was realizing that her 10th grade students couldn't read at grade level. In fact, they could barely read at all. They were reading 2nd and 3rd grade level books like Charlotte's Web and Bridge to Terabithia. She turned to other teachers at her school for advice, but it turns out they were dealing with the same thing. Teacher said, "I'm at a loss." Parents are mad that their kids are failing, but there's not much she can do, especially when it comes to student behavior. We're to a point where the entire education system in the U.S. needs to be revamped in order for teachers and students to succeed. The kids are getting lost in the mix, and teachers suffer the collateral damage. It may seem like options are limited for parents in our current system, but parents can get involved. Vote in school board elections, get involved in state government, and join the PTA. And most importantly, do whatever you can to advocate for your kids and support your teachers. For years, other countries have been outperforming the U.S. education system. Author and parenting expert John Fogel said on TikTok that school in the United States is not set up with kids in mind. The country with the global reputation for having the best education model is Finland, and it's because they put their kids first. They don't teach to tests. Teachers are given carte blanche to actually teach. Not only that, there's no homework, the school day is shorter, and there are more breaks during the day.
So high schoolers can't read, and there's a lot of fixing that is necessary to help teachers help these students.
When we see scores that 70% of 8th graders can't read at grade level and read proficiently, and that actually, when you go into high school, you see that same percentage. And do you know there was a graduate in Hartford, Connecticut. She graduated valedictorian of her class. She sued her school because she couldn't read. but yet she was
I'll
valedictorian.
make another video about that.
It's unbelievable
Isn't that- that's an incredible thing.
because they get money for just matriculating the students. They don't care if they're actually learning.
One of the greatest issues we have with our students is attention. You know, with all this brain rot content out there, the students lack focus. And I think that's one of the great things about reading, is that you can sit for hours and take in information. You're learning as you're reading. You're also learning how to focus on something. You know, cut out everything else that's going on and just focus on reading. But now everything has to be quick and over. And so that's another reason why reading is so important for our students, you know. And school is the place where they're supposed to be doing all their reading. You know, kids are our future, and we've got to invest in our schools, in our teachers, to help